I think it'll take a second to get going. All right, so we're all good. So let me just start off this way. Why don't you just give me a little insight in terms of your background and I'm trying to get an idea. So you guys are the three you the founders, or give me that insight of who you guys are and how you sort of came up with this idea.
Mm-hmm. Yep. So, yes, it's the three of us working on this. We're the founders. We sort of got started building this back in probably August of last year.
Okay.
Um, and we have an existing relationship with the Henry George School of Social Science in New York through our network. And the Henry George School of Social Science is a sort of social science, economics, school. They have like evening and night classes um, related to the topics of economics, and everything that they teach is central around this one figure named Henry George. I don't know if you know who that is.
I do not.
Yeah. So he was an economist in the 1850s, and he advocated for this form of taxation called land value tax, which instead of having all these different taxes like sales tax, income tax, etc., that put the burden on, you know, the common folk.
Hmm.
Instead, if you tax land, which is just an asset that grows and is not doing anything other than benefiting the owner, um, then that's a more efficient form of taxation. That's just what his ideals were. And the entire school like ha is runs around that. And so they wanted to do something to increase people's knowledge and awareness about who Henry George is and what his ideas are. And we, sort of batted around a few ideas and thought that something like this, where uh, you would actually be able to interact with the historical figure and, go through various events and journeys in his life to understand him in a more interactive manner would be good for them, because it'll let raise more awareness about him and let young people also get to experience and understand what this who this guy is in like a more interactive manner. So that's where that whole started. Like we first started building for them specifically,
So
building
you get this. So you get this. You're Are you guys attending school, or are you just working with these guys?
just working with these guys.
Okay, so you work with this guy and you turn around and say, okay, we have an idea.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And typically ideas come out of you're addressing some kind of problem, a
Yeah.
problem statement. And I really love like technology. I think one of the guys that I always enjoy listening to is guys like, Steve Jobs, who was like, I don't really want to take technology and find an answer to the problem. I want to find the problem and then figure out how technology will solve it.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
I think it's pretty interesting. I think you guys are taking that same approach, which is let's look at what the problem is of communicating, and then we'll go figure out how to make the technology work. Is that kind of a fair statement?
Sure. Yeah. Absolutely. Mm-hmm.
Okay. So you guys get together and you're all engineers, technologists, what?
Yeah, by background, we're all technologists. We all have some sort of computer science, data science degrees um, from school. And yeah, like we sort of thought that this would be a great place to use AI in a good way.
All right.
Mhm.
Yeah, I hear you. It's so funny because I was just listening to a an interview with the chair of chip company. I just lost the name of the guy. Um, anyway, one of the things that he did say was, oh, the NVIDIA CEO, and
Hmm.
he basically just said, I'm just people are so amazed at technology and AI, and they're kind of afraid of it
Yeah.
And he said,
Mhm.
I don't want you to be afraid of it. If there's anything I can share with you, the one thing would be, how's your job going to change? And then it just ends up being as well, if I'm a programmer, how am I going to use programming with AI? How am I going to be a QA tester with AI? How am I going to be a scientist with AI? He
Yeah.
goes, if
Yeah.
you just look at it that way, it becomes a tool to be the means to allow you to do things that you typically couldn't do before. And I
Absolutely.
thought that that was a perfect, summation of kind of how I know I look at AI, and I'm assuming you kind of look at it the same way.
Yeah, and specifically what we're doing here is not we're not trying to replace a museum, we're not trying to replace a history classroom. We're not trying to do any of that. We're trying to create something that can be directly integrated and working with the best and brightest, whether it's we consider, museums, historical institutions to have the richest information on any historical topic out there. Ross Farm, for example, like who better than Ross Farm to tell the story of the
Right.
New Jersey American Revolution in New Jersey? Obviously, you know this way better than I do. You're like connected to so many historical institutions. So we thought we have this idea. We want to take in the best information and leverage, the best historians all across the different institutions that exist and power our platforms. That's what we have done with Ross Farm and with Henry George School and with other institutions we have in our pipeline as well.
So why don't you walk me through the process? I mean, I'm a again, I'm a software IT project manager, so I've been doing that for 20 something years.
Yeah,
So I
yeah.
certainly understand the nuances of putting together a project and then executing it from a technical perspective.
Mhm.
How was that experience, though, for you trying to explain how do you make it non-technical? And let's use the Ross Farm
Yeah.
and this Elias Boudinot project, I'll call it. How did you sit down with them and try to explain it to them in a way where they go, "Oh, I get it. Okay, that's really cool. You can do that for me."
Yeah.
How did that sit down or that first call, or did they go like, "Oh my God, AI, it's going to be a robot, what is it going to be?"
No, I mean, what's great is that, or at least everyone we've spoken to so far at Ross Farm or at any other institution, like they've been really excited and open to what we're doing, which honestly was kind of heartwarming and somewhat surprising because you hear so much discourse about the negativity surrounding AI and um, so the fact that people are excited about this, plus like we also went to a 3 weeks ago in Philly. There was this museum conference run by the American Alliance of Museums.
Okay.
And so basically what it was different companies who were trying to sell to museums had booths, and then museum professionals, CEOs, directors, they sort of walked around and looked at all the booths. So we had a booth there, and we got overwhelmingly positive response from our booth. And if you're interested, I can like go into that whole experience a little bit deeper. But um, everyone there was super impressed by what we're doing, and like everyone's like, "Oh, we're looking for like we've been looking for interactive experiences like this that cater to the youth more." So um, I think one thing that really helps us is that we have um, a really strong visual component to our platform. So not necessarily a lot of explaining needs to be done from a technical perspective because you just kind of see it all in terms of like there's transparency about I mean, there's a scene, right? So there's transparency about what elements are included in that scene. And it's very simple and easy to change that with feedback. Then you have the character you have the voice, you have if at any time someone asks a question, like feeds directly from the sources we've put in. The sources are all taken from the institutions too, and the citations are all there. So, like, there's a whole pipeline that while it's like deeply technical under the hood, um, when abstracted out, it's like quite simple actually for people to understand
For the
and
end user,
see,
the observer,
yeah, yeah, and
or the
see how
participant.
exactly, and see how they can contribute.
Got it. Okay.
Yeah,
So you get started, you pick this character, so it's Elias Boudinot.
yeah.
Know a lot about the gentleman. Do you set it up to a point where you first um, have them provide the overview of who they are, and then say, ask me any question, or do you have two? I know you were set up in that barn a particular way. Was one sort of an introduction of him being digitally animated, and then the second one was you get to talk to it, or how do you set that up?
Yeah, so we got two main products. One is our flagship product where it's just a scene, so a visual image basically with a lifelike bust or, full human, but like a 3D bust kind of a figure that can actually have his lip move and eyes blink and all that sort of stuff while he's
Right,
talking.
right,
And then you have, the chat functionality there. So that's simply a conversation. So if somebody has a burning question that they want to ask Elias Budno, for example, they can simply just go and chat with him. We found that a lot of people didn't know who Elias Budno was, so they didn't
right.
really know what to ask. So for that, we had what we call a journey mode, which is we're trying to build this for all our characters, but at least one event where you travel back with that particular figure to an important event in their life. And so it's a series of videos and different checkpoints where you have to ask, oh, do you want to go here? Do you want to go there? And then at certain points, some of the checkpoints are actually, again, having a conversation with the figure. And by the end, the expectation is that you have some baseline level of knowledge of the figure now that you can then go and ask deeper questions in the other chat product.
Okay. So at such a great point, because sort of it's like, I guess it's sort of like in courtrooms where it's kind of, they call it leading the witness, where you sort of want to prep them so that they know kind of what they can ask. And it's kind of interesting because, again, you never know how much that person that's coming into the journey, how much they may know. Are they a
Yeah.
newbie? Are they a historian? Are they a researcher? Are they a kid? And then
Hmm.
age groups certainly come into play. So there's so many different dynamics, which I think is just fascinating because to your point, to become conversational is just, it's such a monumental task
Yeah.
because you never know what the audience is really. It's kind of like a comedian on stage that asks the audience for questions, and
Yeah.
they need to be very quick
Right.
about answering the question. And I think that, but from a historical perspective, you had to go through we talk about sort of the data element and the imagery, and adapting that into the machine learning capability to allow those data points to be gathered so
Yeah.
that the bot, so to speak, the person can become intuitive to a question and then a response. Was that challenging in this respect for Elias Buno?
Uh, yes, it definitely was. But I would say that the Elias Budno component was a little less challenging um, than some of the other figures, like the Henry George. So Henry George, we had been working on Henry George for months, trying to perfect him. And so
Okay.
that, just working using that as a test case, like we found many different bugs, and he says certain things he shouldn't say, like you should say it this way, not that way. Um, the lip movements are not good, so we should like try and the improve the latency so that the text streaming text matches the voice text, like sort of
Right.
things like that. Like Henry George was our training ground for all that stuff. And then with Elias, we know more of the iteration was because all that infrastructure development, or most of it for the chat at least, happened with Henry George. Most of the Elias, tough part about the Elias work was getting his particular historical elements right and his story right. So less challenge related to the actual product and more just like figuring out what's important based on, speaking with the historians.
So they call him, I mean, God, for a decade I was a ran QA testing teams,
Hmm.
right? And obviously this was before AI, but with the advent of AI, I started working with teams in terms of first building, we did automation to validate certain things. Then you would do negative testing. I would assume that the negative testing is probably the hardest part because you just don't know. You know how your model just sort of loses its value if it starts saying things that
Yeah,
are
yeah, yeah.
deepfakes or
Right.
incorrect,
Hmm.
right?
So
So who's the one that gets to really test? Do you positive test it or do you negative test it? Or do you have to do
so
both? How does it work?
so we do both positive and negative testing, but in fact, most of so I'll go back to Henry George again. Um, Henry George School required a lot of so I mean, as you know, like all these institutions have boards, and in order for us to get, approval and trust and all that to build a Henry George experience the Henry George School of Social Science puts their stamp on, we needed unanimous approval of the board. And at first we had one or two champions that were really working with us. And then it came time to like release a beta version, which just people affiliated with the school could use.
Right.
So the board actually, almost everyone tested it pretty religiously. And lots of negative testing happened there. Just like we didn't ask them to do that. They just like wanted to
They kind of
try
wanted
and
to trick it or
yeah, they
get it
wanted
to
to trick
say
it or
things that it shouldn't say.
exactly try to break the system and all that.
Right.
And so one example is Henry George was pretty racist, specifically towards Chinese people.
Hmm.
And so one of the board members tried asking him something about that, and he said something flagrant related to the Chinese people. And so that was a big no-no. Like, even though we want to portray him in a accurate and realistic manner, at the same time, you have to keep in mind, that that's just not acceptable in today's day and age.
The
So
boundaries,
this,
right.
yeah, yeah. So what we kind of had to do was prompted to for him to say in those situations to be like, okay, this was my, I would have said this at that time, but it's not actually correct, not the right thing to say, blah blah blah. So yeah, that's just one example of how negative testing has helped us.
So that's a great point. You
Yeah.
brought that up, and I think that that's interesting because a lot of people, especially kids, certainly, but adults have been known to do this with Siri. Is you know, for example, it's called. I know it's called governance, but it's kind of like and this is a big issue in the AI space, which are what are the guardrails of governance? Because, for example, getting Siri to swear is something that Siri comes back and says, I really don't want to do that. That's
Yeah.
really not appropriate. You've now did this 3 times. I can't do that. And then you finally stop.
Hmm.
Um, is that something that, again, from a model perspective, that you build as sort of the foundation of the governance of the bot when it's thinking about a response or trying to respond?
Yeah, yeah, we do have extensive guardrails
So once you get
around.
that set, I'm
Mhm.
assuming it's just needs to be customized or configured for that particular situation, right?
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah, it's God, I mean, this is where people online certainly get afraid. I mean, I was looking at a just 60 Minutes just did a piece this weekend about how they can how Boston Scientific is learning how to train one robot, but they're not really training one robot. They have a simulator that trains 5,000 robots to do a particular task, and they watch them fail until one gets it perfectly right, and then it says stop, tell the other 4,000, and that next
Okay.
second all 5,000 now knew how to do jumping jacks.
Right, right.
So I'm assuming that this is a machine learning. So are you sort of setting the guardrails to teach so you can then provide the artifacts and then it can learn? Is I'm assuming that's sort of the high level process.
Yeah, yeah. Specifically for learning from the documents, or we have, I mean, not just documents, but like we wanted to make sure it has, the correct knowledge up until, so like if you're in the scene with Henry George, that's like the dinner of a dinner scene in 1895. So if you ask him a question about Barack Obama or Donald Trump or something from present times,
All right.
he's gonna say, "Oh, I don't know who that is."
I don't know
So
who that
he'll,
is.
yeah. So he only has, they only have knowledge up until the time that you're actually like viewing the person in.
Right.
Anything before that. So that's one guardrail we've set. Then we have all the documents that either primary sources like letters, correspondences, anything that the person themselves wrote or have information on, or any of their like people close to them. Uh, and then you have any other sources about like things written on them. So we work with the historians of each institution to pick and choose those documents they think are the best. Sometimes these documents are not even freely available on the internet. So we have, you know, data that a normal LLM would not even have, which is one of um, our big advantages. And so what happens is that anytime a user asks a question, then it searches through the most relevant chunks of the documents, picks
Mm-hmm.
out, top 10, top 5, whatever, chunks, and then using that, only that, and some of the other prompts we've added. Only that is used to formulate the response, and then once the response is formulated, you can see exactly what part of the chunk in the document that response is cited from.
So how is it? You and I just met and we were talking there, but I never really got a chance to dig into it. I mean, I certainly understand it. What was the experience like when you were? That was an open house on Flag Day, and you're inviting these people in, and they're coming in. Now you actually met well, I actually met Elias Boudinot, the older version,
Yeah,
walking around. His name is Hank. He's been doing this for decades.
yeah, yeah.
But I also met the younger version. He was also there. Now, the older version, when I walked in and asked, I said, Elias, what's here today? What should I go take a look at? And he said, before you leave, you have to go in and see these tech guys and go talk to their AI version of Elias Boudinot.
Hmm.
It blew me away. I said, there you go. I need to go see this. And then I really enjoyed that because then coming in to see you guys, it's a great understanding of knowing the history and knowing a bit about the technology and understanding sort of the journey. But how did you feel the reception was from the people that kind of got it? Most of them get it? Did they ask anything interesting, or did they trick it?
Yeah.
How did the experience work out for you, and how do you think it worked out for them?
Yeah, I think overall, everyone who came to our booth, whether they tried it properly or not, first of all, was super impressed by what we were doing. We sort of started off with like, 'cause most people didn't know who Elias Sputino was. We just started off with a little bit of background on him. And then we introduced, oh, you can either talk to Elias Boudinot, you can either, or you can go back to him to witness George Washington's inauguration, or you
Right.
can play some games with him. And then, some people, as soon as I said, oh, you can talk to him, they were like, oh, like they were just like a little weirded out by that, I think. So, so
That is funny.
yeah, so you can, some of them left. Though most people really enjoyed watching and interacting with our journey back to his inauguration. I did notice that only some people really engaged with the actual chat, and because mostly like people didn't actually know what to ask him, but those that did really engaged with him, and mostly it was like productive conversation. Like what I tried to do was for the people who were to get them to chat with them. I asked them, "Oh, where are you from?" And whatever town they said, then I asked Elias about what that town was like back then, and then that sort of
Right.
sparked a nice conversation for them with them. But they needed a little bit of that nudge. And then you had some people who were like, "Oh, are the Knicks gonna win tonight? Are the are the Giants gonna win?" Like, are
That's
like, yeah. So
because you get that.
yeah,
But let me ask you this one thing. So a couple of things. I totally get this idea. I am super jazzed for you guys. Um, would love to be able to help you out any way I can, and our organization can. But I think that the interesting thing was the experience, and one sort of a mind blowing experience is probably, I get this as sort of you walk and you crawl, walk, run kind of
yeah,
storyline that we do in technology is, wow, I thought about this and I went home and I was like, wow, if these guys just had a set of VR goggles and you put them on and you put that person sitting in the room with this guy to have a conversation. And you're right, it begins with my name is so and so, I am so and so, this is my property. I bet you have a question for me first. What's your name? And like you just said, you create that dialogue. I started going out of the box and going, 60-inch TVs and VR goggles and, all these aspects of how do you take your technology and market it in a way, because you're right, when someone walks up to a laptop, and even I did, I'm like, oh, I get it. But if I put on a set of VR goggles and I walk up to, I was one of the first guys that got to play around back in the day about putting on VR goggles, and you could actually walk the risk levels of your investment portfolio, and you would actually walk through your stock portfolio's history, and you
okay,
could see the cliffs and the peaks and see how big they were. and what your risk exposure was. And that was the
Absolutely.
first time we would put money managers, we would say, load your portfolio in here and now run this VR model. And people, these guys were blown away. They were like, oh my God, I had no idea. When I finally could see it, I then knew it. And I
Yeah.
think that this is the, I'm sure you guys have already thought about it, but in terms of where do you guys see this going next? I mean, I'd be really interested to sort of, are you trying to get sort of a base set and be able to replicate it to 500 other virtual characters?
Exactly. Yeah,
Is
that's what
that
we're trying to
really the
do.
goal now, or do you want to change the experience? You want to do both? What is sort of your short term and maybe your longer term goals?
Yeah, short term is to try to take advantage of this America 250 wave and get as many institutions as we can related to this on board and build characters for them. I'd say that's the short term. Um, then we feel we'd have a strong credibility within at least the local history community, if not. Um, is my partner trying to join?
Yeah, I just brought him in.
Okay, awesome.
Oh, sorry, I got a
No.
friend of mine here. Just can't she can't seem to get away.
Hey bro,
Yeah.
sorry for
Hey,
running late.
this is you guys should know this is what happens when you work from home and it's Friday.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Luckily, I don't have kids screaming, but the cats, for some reason, like to jump right through my screen. Um, but anyway, we were just to catch you up. Is what we were doing is we were having a discussion of sort of what the short term aspects are. And sorry, let me get back to what you were saying. You were talking about America 250 as an opportunity right now. That's
Yeah.
kind of where you're going. Is that what you were going to? And then maybe something a little longer term.
Yeah, yeah, in the short term, that's kind of the moat we're trying to build right now. We are also opening ourselves to any kind of historical institution, but sort of focusing on America 250 right now. Then, longer term, we then want to use this momentum to basically build credibility in the historical community and get, the right documents, right sources from, sort of multiple lenses, aspects, and then eventually figure out how we might want to use this as a product in schools, specifically as a supplement in the history classroom. So that's something we want to explore too
Is there a
later.
particular age group that you're looking for? Do you want to take it to a higher level, or you want to sort of introduce kids to these characters? What are you thinking?
Yeah, honestly, to be very honest, we need to do some more exploration into that front, some more user research. We haven't, yeah, we just need to do a lot more thinking on that.
Well, why don't you brief your compatriots here of I don't want to go over all the stuff we went through, but I'm certainly I'm impressed and I see the unlimited capabilities, but again, that as I was trying to explain earlier, the challenges are how you put sort of the not the guardrails on it, but how you put the boundaries on sort of what are the goals that you want to, deal with in short term versus some of the ones that you want to do from the long term. Because I guarantee you put this out in the public domain, and again, you're going to get a million questions. So that's always very good because again, I always like to use machine learning actually using, for example, Google Analytics for web analytics to be able to better understand what are people looking for? Are we writing the right things or doing the right research? And if we're not doing the right research, where do we need to go? So
Mhm.
we're using AI to do that based on data, though it's sort of lagging data. But all of a sudden, I was saying earlier, I could come up with 500 characters for you right now, but the point ends up being is I think you need to be selective because you go try to hit George Washington and you're the sheer overload of information is so heavy that, again, I mean, to create a character to be able to recite on demand is is certainly a machine learning AI dream. I mean, that's it's kind of like I love when it responds to me, "Can you do that?" And it'll just say, "That's what I'm here for." I'm here to do these things that you don't think I can do. And I challenge it. But the problem I run into with the engineers I work with is the false output, the false, the negatives, the
Mm-hmm.
false positives. Um, so I know that, I mean, from your experience, um, I'm just curious with these, this is now your second character. Do you do you have you guys got to have one that you want to chase? Which character do you want to chase next?
Well, with America 250, you have so many great characters. Um, George Washington, Alexander Hamilton, um, all the big figures. So I think that's what we want to chase.
Now, if you do Alexander Hamilton, does he need to be able to sing and dance now too? Is I don't know.
No.
I think that, again, I think people, this is where you got to set the expectation is these people may want them to, because they only, this is such a brilliant, that was such a brilliant idea of being able to do that, because I can't tell you, because our nonprofit, for example, is called history. Our sort of mantra is history with a social twist, which means it socially has to engage. And typically, historically, it's been, well, it needs to be fun. As one guy told me, it's like, if it has food, booze, and women, and you tell a little history, I'm good. I'm good. I just want to tell the story. I want you to embrace it. Now, if I need cigars or the history of booze or this guy that made booze and cigars to explain how they ran speakeasies in the 1920s, um, yeah, I was all about that. But I think that for you guys, the question ends up being, do you want it in person? Do you or do you want it like at historical societies or buildings that guy maybe was from, like Independence Hall? And do you want people to come in and then have a conversation, or do you want them to do it online where they can get to know me
Yes.
before you go to Independence Hall? Give me an idea what you guys are thinking of the possibilities.
So the possibilities are all of those things, and more. Right? We are sort of, whatever conversations with institutions are having right now, we're building for their needs. But and right now it's mostly been just like online, but it could be used in any of those settings for sure.
Now, guys, Arun and Freedom, got a question for you. Would you like to just say hi? We're recording this. I never know
Mhm.
when I'm going to need it, or may end up sharing bits of pieces of it, or just transcribe it. Let me just, we're sort of three-quarters into this. What would you guys like to say or add about either the journey that you got involved in? Are you shocked? Is it harder than you thought? Is it easier than you thought? Or is there a problem that you think that this can solve? And just give me an idea.
Yeah. So, yeah, first of all, Brooks, yeah, thanks for scheduling this interview. And, we were late. Apologize for that first. So we were caught in the previous meeting and Pritham and we just got out and we just joined in. So to coming back to your question, so when we started this, I feel, we built only the chat piece first, like where you can actually speak to the figures itself. So we started with Henry George, as you know. So
Right.
then we got to know that, okay, people who know about Henry George would actually come and speak to him. Otherwise, how would you even solve the problem of, introducing him to others who's out of his domain? So that is when we started with, let's actually teach people about Henry George and his principles. That is when we built out the journey mode that you saw. For Elias, we had created about the embarkation where he take along with George Washington the whole journey. So yeah, so right from the day we started, we had multiple iteration. We thought about this in multiple different angles to see how this actually can be a fit. Like, is there a problem that we are trying to solve? And turns out we were actually trying to solve a problem of, introducing, making people aware of the history that they have been through, like, bringing them back. And I would say it is not easy as we thought, but yeah, it's quite interesting for us too, because we got to learn many new things on this journey. And
Sure.
also and also to we got to meet awesome people, like it's always meeting new people and sharing different
Right.
perspectives, and it's you get always a new idea, or what you think, or the feedback that you get. It's always very valuable. So it's a continuous journey, I would say. Still, we have a lot of scope to build upon. That's going to be ongoing and ever going.
No, I get it. What about you, Preetham? What do you think?
So we were very excited when we got this idea of what if any historical figure could actually talk to you and ask or solve any of your questions. And so then the challenge was AI is very dynamic and you can't say which is true and which is not true. So then we decided what if we just ground it to whatever books they wrote or whatever letters or all this personal items they have. So then we can improve the personality and bring as much close to the reality. So that was very excited from the very beginning. And yeah, in the process, we got to learn a lot more history, which we didn't know earlier, and it is very exciting to learn more and help others to uh, learn more about the history and get into it. So yeah, excited for the journey.
So, being engineers, I'll ask you a very simple question, and again, just to give you my background, I've been an IT guy for the last 25 years. So certainly, project managing and testing and software engineering certainly get your journey, but I think that this is a little bit different. So, how would you, knowing that you had professors sort of helping you and guiding you and learning you and teaching you, and then you come up with this idea, how would you grade yourself? You had to give yourself a grade on your first Henry George. How would you grade yourself when you had to use Henry George to create Elias Boudinot? And now, who do you think is better now? Are they the same? Is one better? Give me an idea what you think.
Hmm. So I would say, because we had many imperfections with Henry George when we started. So we did have multiple rounds of testings with the, historians on the board itself, and but coming to the accuracy of a historical figure, because Elias he was much more beyond than what Henry George was limited to. Like, the scope is much more larger for Elias. So that is where Bruce, the kind of the idea that he had in his mind, we were I feel that we made he has very lot of different rich ideas. So based on his vision, I think we are at least in the journey part. The chat, I would say, both are grounded and both are working. They are actually very accurate. But at least for the journey, I would say Elias has much more better historically curated journey. where you can experience the accuracy. Like, you can say how many oarsmen were there on the board, or how many flags, or how many stars were there on the flag. So they're all very accurate comparatively. So it's like, we know how do we create this now to be much more accurate. So I would say, yeah, so that was one of the learning that we took from Henry George's journey that we were building, or the whole thing that we created, to make it a much more a level better in Elias.
So it'll get you think that they actually, because again, I think that this learning journey, they start to learn, your character will start to learn as well. The more information and the more things that you learn to sort of set this up will work. I got to tell you, I already know a couple of guys, these a couple of doctors that have spent decades studying particular Revolutionary War America 250 characters that I could put you in touch with, that would just salivate over the idea of creating this kind of capability, that may tie into your America 250. And that's what I kind of want to get to, sort of maybe just wrapping this up, is just to find out again, sort of what is next for the three of you. What would you like to see happen? How can I help you, or how can anybody that's in sort of the game help you, um to get to where you want to go next? I would love to be able to try to help, but I would love to hear what you think.
Yeah, for sure. First of all, thank you so much for taking the time for us. I guess first question before we get to that though is like, what are the next steps for this? Like you said you're planning on writing an article um
Oh,
about
for
us.
what I would like to do based on this information,
Yeah.
what we would like to do is just to be able to write a profile piece of sort of what is the problem statement that you guys are starting to address,
Right.
which is, how do you communicate using technology a vision or a journey of a particular person, and then allow someone to be able to communicate at whatever level of experience that they may have to your particular character. I mean, I think doing that and maybe working with you, if you can maybe help me get a clip of kind of your character, and then a sample of a recording of what you did, or some interactive demo to say, hey, let me show you how this works.
Mm-hmm.
Something very quick that allows us to be able to help share your story,
Mm-hmm.
so that here's what's going to happen. People are going to read it very quickly, and they're going to want to make a call, and they're going to say, I want in, I want to do it, help me do it, how much, whatever, how
Yeah.
long, how much. So the who, what, when, where, why, how, you guys think about that and have that figured
Yeah.
out. Your FAQs, how does it work? How do you work with to engage somebody? Those are the things that once I write this piece and put this out there, people are going to want to know. They're going to say, I want in. Now, a lot of times, think about it this way: guys that are in this space, and I'm not saying like the Ross Farm is a little bit of a different animal, because the Ross Farm is taking multi tenants. They have the gardening, they have the music, they have the history, they have a physical property, they have a township, a countywide exposure, so they can look at it a bunch of different ways. You guys have to look at it in a way to say, like, okay, I like doing this and everything, but when does compensation work for us? And I can tell you what, the community usually looks at, oh my God, I need to apply for a grant, to do this. And grants take a year or a year and a half to get. So they're going to need to understand your business model. So I would just prefer to say, make sure you guys kind of put that together, that you have that in, you know, honestly, I would create a bot just like you're doing now for these historians. Use your own technology to say, talk to me about my program and let me explain it to you using your technology. So that's just sort of a helpful way to say, hey, why don't you use your own technology? What do they say? Eat your own food, so to speak. At least I tell that to my clients when I work with them. But anyway, that would kind of be the thing that I would say, if all I want to do, honestly, is I think that you're the 250 angle, fantastic. The New Jersey piece that you did, fantastic. I think where I'd like to take the piece is a bio of each of you, a little thing, stuff that, Arnav, that we went through in terms of sort of your history. And then the last thing is, if you want to find out more, go look at these guys, because I've seen your website and saw your overview and saw the drawing. But again, somebody's going to want a whole lot more. And it'd be better for you to, like you just said, it'd be better to give it to them before they make the call, because otherwise they're going to ask you 1,000 questions, and you really want to be able to qualify them properly to be able to say, is this an organization or a person that we need to target, or we have to kind of put this on the back burner? But somebody may come back to you and turn around and say, well, if I gave you 10 grand, would you do it? You might go, yes, or you might go, it's not a money thing right now. It's an educational thing. It's a development thing. You guys figure that out.
Yeah.
So I may have a list of FAQs, for example, and I went through it. I mean, the same thing. In my job, I used AI to say, if I'm going to talk to these guys about what they did, tell me who the competition is. Tell me how far they've gone. Tell me what characters are out there. Tell me what's unique about these guys. Go scan their website. Tell me why they're unique. And I hope you guys have done that as well, because it does create a very positive niche that AI thinks that you've created and put out there that is very enticing. And that is the same thing that why when I heard it, I went, oh, these guys have got something cool. This is a good idea. Is it a moneymaker? Who knows? Does it lead you to something? I don't know. Does it lead to introductions? Absolutely. Absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
But again, you've got to turn it into a viable piece of software that you can, the large language model can function
That
quickly.
makes sense. We'll definitely do the work on that. We'd be eternally grateful for you for the exposure.
Yeah, and I can't wait to put this together to get you guys out there. So as a follow-up, and again, I created the transcribe here in Teams so that I can be able to get some notes and then give you guys a summary, and I'll give you an idea where I would like to take this from our nonprofit's perspective. But again, I don't want to overburden you guys. If you guys already sort of have a plan, you have a pipeline, and you have sort of some targets of what you want to do. And if you can help me with that, I will help you communicate that so you don't get overburdened by a bunch of guys kicking the tires and maybe guys that want to replicate what you do. I'm not saying they do, but the audience guys that I would introduce you to are I'd even have to think about it. And I'd put together a series of questions that I would ask about that person before I would say, yeah, these are things you need to think about before you would want to get involved with these guys. Okay. So I would love to spin that back to you and then turn that around and see what could happen with it. I'd love to help you. I'll help you in any way I can. I mean, like I said, I'm a technologist at heart as well. And I think you guys have a really bang up idea. And I'm so glad that you landed in New Jersey and you picked a Jersey guy and you picked a guy from our town. it's It's a 3 home runs in a row.
Yes, sir.
So yeah, we can work on that. I'd love to be able to continue this dialogue. But I do have one last question, and I know it was a great term, but historical AI, spelled like Ellison's Oracle. Is there a reason, or is it a pun? What's the background on your wording for your corporate identity?
Yeah, it's just it works out. It sounds good. It's the for history and then Oracle for, going to the past.
Right. Okay. So it's not Ellison's, it's the Oracle as in the vision.
Yeah, the vision. Exactly.
It's a great word, great term. I love it. It's fantastic. Guys, I know it's 1 o'clock. I'm going to stay tight. I always try to stay tight to the deadlines. But thank you very much for your time. We'll start framing this on our end. We'll certainly share it with you. We are iterative all the time. As we learn new things, we'll modify stories that we prepare. And I think we'll start short. And then usually I think that, for example, one story becomes another story, becomes another story.
Mhm.
And I think as your characters start coming through the pipeline, you guys will start building customized stories or customized journeys that you want people to take. And I think that the more you get out there, where are you guys going next with this to sort of demonstrate your capability? To get feedback? Is feedback an important part of what you're doing?
Absolutely. Feedback is hugely important. Yeah. So we have a couple of conferences in the pipeline. Like I mentioned, the last conference in Philadelphia that we went to.
Mhm.
So something similar to that. And then we're always looking for other forms of exposure too.
Okay. And I can maybe help you with that too. Where the good ones, where the not so good ones. There was a really good one actually just going on yesterday and today up in Morristown. But anyway, we'll look into that and we'll try to guide you or help you. Feel free to use us. We are a nonprofit institution. We are here to connect. So we're here to share because we never want to do anything by ourselves. We always try to connect parties, whether it's 2 or 3 or 4 different organizations, to be able to collaborate and share. Everything we do, we share for free. Everybody always says, how can you do that? Because that's what we do. That's what we live off donations. Our followers, I was amazed. It took us 6 years to get to 1 million views and took us 6 months to get to 1.5 million. It's
Oh, wow.
it's weird how exponential it can become. I see the same kind of thing for you guys as well. So if you weren't ready, get ready because you guys are going to go on a ride. And I hope you're ready for it. But it's very cool. Give you the big thumbs up in terms of promoting the history. I'm all about it. Any creative way to do it for any age group in a social environment, the way you talked about conversationally, just blows my mind. And you're right up our alley. Right up our alley. So I'll leave it there. If you guys have anything else, certainly you have my email and contact information. I'll drop you sort of a summary of this, and then we'll see where we can go. I'd love to help you.
Absolutely.
Thank you, bro.
Thank you so much.
All right, guys.
Yeah.
Thank you all again for your time.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye bye.